Welcome to the Aspiring Kryptonians, a podcast for Superman fans, hosted by Superman fans, and focused around all things, you guessed it, Superman. After all, we are Aspiring Kryptonians. From comics, TV, film and animation, each week we discuss our thoughts on the latest releases, news and even some retrospective reviews. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road. Hello and welcome to the Aspiring Kryptonians podcast with me, Tasmin, Dave, Sam and a very special guest, writer Phillip Kennedy Johnson.
Hey guys, thanks for having me back.
Thank you for coming back. Yes, you all know Phillip from his work on Action Comics, of course, Superman, Warworld Apocalypse, which you can see the cover of in the background on Phillip's screen just there, House of Al, Alien, 007, and the newly announced Green Lantern series. A big welcome to you, Phillip, and again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us again today. I think it's your third time on the show now, so we can't really keep you away, can we?
Yeah, that sounds right.
How are you doing?
Very well. Staying busy, but it's good. It's things are going good. How about you guys? How's Cal? How's everybody?
Yeah, he's good. He's good. Growing too fast.
Yeah. It's always cool seeing his videos.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously we're live. So if you're watching, thank you for tuning in. Feel free to throw any questions our way, and if we don't cover them in the interview and the chat that we're going to have, we'll pick them up at the end, just so you can get your questions in. It's been a while between me and you, Phillip, as well, but it's also been a while with Dave and Sam. So we've been on a hiatus for a little while, but we are back. So just to let you guys know, we're going to be doing monthly episodes going forward. We won't be going through every single release or piece of news within that month because we would be there forever, but we will talk about our favorites along the way. But yeah, I love doing this. I love talking Superman with everybody, but time is precious. We have families, work, and things get in the way. So glad to be back, but on a slightly smaller scale. So Time Lord Kryptonian, hello. Just a few hellos on the screen here. Hello.
Yeah, we have people.
People are here. And Chubby Teddy Monster Productions, which is a great name, just found your channel, which is a gold mine. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy. So there have been, I'm going to go straight into it if that's okay with you, Phillip. There's a lot of Superman stuff. There's been a lot of Superman announcements recently, and a lot of them actually include you, so I'm glad we've got you on the show. I want to start with the news that shocked me the most, and that's reinstating the secret identity.
Yeah, it's a big one, right?
Yeah. So I know a lot of people were mad about Bendis' decision to do that in the Truth story arc in the Superman title back then, but when you first heard of those plans for the arc, were you already signed on to take over Action Comics?
No, you mean when I heard that that Brian was taking the secret identity? Was I signed on to write it? No, I wasn't.
Yeah.
I saw that with every other fan out there, and I did not squawk at it the way some people did. We've all seen Superman change a little bit over the generations, like any other character that's been around for such a long time. So when back in the day, sometimes Clark would play these kind of cruel little gaslighting games on Lois, like, haha, if only she knew I was really Superman. It's kind of like messing with her all the time. And he's not that way anymore, and it's not that the relationship is not like that at all. But when I had the old books I grew up on, reading those, it kind of didn't make sense. It didn't really square with the Superman that I knew from like the Christopher Reeve Truth and Justice, kind of like straight and tall, tell the truth all the time kind of Superman. So that was one aspect of his character growing up. That I was like, well, why does he lie to everybody all the time about this one thing?
Yeah. So
I didn't hate it, actually. I wanted to see how it was going to get executed. Of course, there's the question of like, how does he protect people he cares about? How does he, he's putting a big bullseye on everyone's chest that's close to him, and that's certainly valid. And I did miss the idea of him being about walking among us, and just being like enjoying his time, being actually human, and being able to openly be the person that the kids raised and everything. So it's kind of a give and take. I don't know. I saw that there would be some things given up for that change. but it also opened up new possibilities. I like the idea of him being honest with everyone,
Yeah.
and I like. I mean, Bendis, I think, at the time said something about it changing every relationship that Superman has with the supporting cast, but also with his enemies and everything. It changes, turns everything on its head. That is definitely a short-term gain, but it certainly made for some interesting story possibilities. But anyway, so right now, the Warworld saga is over. We're kicking off Superman #1 again. Adventures of Superman is starting up again with John Kent in that role. And it's also the beginning of Dawn of DC, this new kind of line-wide initiative, sort of like Rebirth in that way. And it's sort of a bigger, brighter, era of DC comic books that we're about to begin.
Yeah.
And part of that is finding the elements of the classic Superman that work, that everyone knows and loves, that makes everyone feel good about Superman, and using them in the context of new stories. And there are certain elements of Lois and Clark that only work with the secret identity intact. If you lose the hat and the tie and the glasses, and you lose that secret that they share, there's definitely something lost. In a way, it kind of kills the character of Clark Kent. In a way, he's still Clark, but it's not. It's a different persona. That iconic, like, chest bursting open thing that you always see is lost. And there are elements of that we really need for specific stories that are coming out here soon. So it made sense for now to be the time to walk that back and to bring back that classic element.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I wasn't mad when it was first announced. I thought it was quite cool because it was something new. I know it's been done and reset before in the past, but I thought it's nice to see a change, allow for more stories, like you said. But yeah, there was that little bit that I missed, which is all the sneaking around of Clark Kent, especially the old
as
comics.
long as we lose the mean-spirited, like, what an idiot kind of thing that used to happen, I can deal. And it was not an easy decision. I'm sure it was not an easy decision for Brian, and it's certainly not an easy decision for us now. We kind of had to weigh the pros and cons. There are people who are involved in the decision, like, yes, we get to do it. Like, I've been waiting for this the whole time. I can't wait. This is totally how it should be. I was like, I think we should talk about it and make sure that's the right thing. Like, think about what we're losing to get this back. Yes, there are things that the secret identity brings that we all miss. However, let's think about, let's really think about it and work it out. Because I kind of play devil's advocate in the office. Like, here are the things that we're losing if we do it. Here are the things we can gain. Yeah. Let's, please don't do it just because it feels good. Let's figure it out. And in the end, it was the right call.
Some of my favorite moments in the comics is when Lois sort of takes the mick out of Clark a little bit, saying, "Oh, you're not as strong as Superman," or those sort of things. They always make me laugh. So I know obviously that relationship has already changed, so we're probably not going to get that. But I'm looking forward to seeing Clark Kent back for what he is.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I mean, even just that physical gesture of, something happens, world's in trouble. He runs. He leaves Clark Kent. No one's looking at him. He bursts open his chest, seeing like seeing one of us get the call to help and open up the shirt, and the S shield is there. Like, now I'm becoming a hero. Kind of a moment. Just feels good. It feels right. It's such an important part of who he is. But as someone who's kind of made it, I've kind of made it my mission statement in every issue to have a moment that kind of gives people chills and just feel that, like, yeah, Superman kind of a thing. In every issue where you can kind of feel you kind of hear the John Williams fanfare sailing through your mind when it happens. Having that in there just makes it almost too easy. Like that gesture that I want people to feel. I want people to feel, in the few moments in my own life where something dramatic and scary has happened in real life, it's, and it's time to do something. It feels strangely like that. It feels strangely like somebody has to, that kind of a moment. And I want people to feel that, like, this is the moment where I have to do something, not just watching him do it, but I want them to feel it in their own life. And I don't know, it sounds corny, but I mean, Superman is like my religion, not just as a fan. Yeah. And people need to try to take some of that home and take that into themselves, and being able to see it like that, seeing somebody go from, the derpy guy with glasses to, now I'm going to save this guy. It's important.
That's what I love as well. And I'm just excited to see the stories that you've got to come from this. There's a lot of comments coming in, which makes a nice change. So hello everybody. I did just see one about the
identity.
Yeah.
What was it?
This is just sort of relating back to Bendis's run. Like, I thought a lot of it almost like sort of stood alone because it was like a reinvented origin of Krypton with the new villain Rogozar, who I thought was really cool. That was the story that aged up John Kent too. Like it was like its own little thing pretty much. Just so out of the ordinary. It was neat that just made me open to whatever change was happening. And we got some great panels and pages coming out of there, like the Perry White reveal one when Clark revealed.
The Perry White page was.
Oh, that's a great page. No, it's just all illustrations. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's so beautifully done. Yeah, there were some of the best moments in my opinion of Brian's run happened during that moment basically. Yeah, there was the Perry page, which still kind of gives me chills. That was a great moment.
And the Jimmy Olsen one was pretty funny as well because he was like, I know.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that when he's like, I just see glasses. I don't. What do you mean? And like, that was a great page. That was very Bendis too. Like, people talk about like, oh, Brian's tone is so different from the Superman tone, and it's that page is like the perfect marriage of like classic Superman stories and the Bendis voice. You know, like that was such a great moment. What was another one? There was one where Lex Luthor's checking his voicemail, and the Joker's on there. Remember?
Yes, and making fun of him.
He's going through his voicemail, like, you have 164 messages or whatever, and he plays one. There's a few other ones, and he plays one, and it's the Joker just laughing into the phone. He deletes it, and then the next one is the same thing, and the next one is the same thing, just laughing his ass off ad nauseum. That was great.
Yeah.
So there were good moments, and I do think it was more of a short-term gain. But here's the reason that's okay though, because comics have always been the illusion of change. I mean, it's one of those things where it seems like there are these crazy huge swings. Like, oh my God, Batman's back is broken. He's never gonna be Batman again. If he does, it's gonna be 20 years, and it doesn't make sense.
Superman's powers are electrical now. Oh my goodness!
Exactly, he's electrical now for all time. He is now electrical Superman. Like it feels
about 4
like
years.
It feels like these big changes happening, but then they change back, or they change in another direction again, and eventually back. Like it's always coming back to a status quo, kind of. Even though somebody with a history as long as Superman has had very slow, glacial, actual changes to status quo, like. You know, he's kind of like psychologically bullying Lois. Now they're actually together. Now he tells her who he is. Now they're married. Now they have a kid. Like very slow, gradual changes. But big changes, like somebody's dead or somebody turns electrical or something, stuff like that. Like they seem big and dramatic, but they don't last all that long because everything has to seem like a big deal constantly. But then it's they come back just as quick.
Yeah, you kind of have to go back because it's the character. Like if you constantly build on the changes that are already there, he's going to be someone totally different.
Yeah.
So speaking of Clark Kent, Wayne Brooks is asking if we will see Clark Kent investigative reporter again.
I'd like to. Yeah, we're definitely going to see him as a writer. I really like that Clark saves people even when he's not in costume. When he's just doing his day job, he's still saving lives and changing the world and doing the hard thing as a writer. He kind of has this grand destiny, and he's here to save the world, and he's the last survivor, and he's a warrior because we kind of make him be. Like he fights because he has to. He was taught to be a farmer, but he chose to be a writer.
Yeah.
And so I love hearing his voice as a writer, and Lois too. I've had a couple chances to write Lois's writing, which is really fun. And how Bendis has run very often. I can't remember if it was Superman or Action or both, but the first page one would be the shot of somebody's desk.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty cool. I'm not going to reuse that thing, but I am going to have moments where there's going to be voiceover that is either Lois or Clark's or whoever's, article that they've just written for the Daily Planet, and that's going to be the voiceover for certain segments because it's an important part of who they are, the writers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do love the idea of him being an investigative reporter as well. And although the scripts I've written up till this point don't have a lot of that, I do think it's a great idea, and I also would like to do that. So yeah, stay tuned.
Well, that was kind of your statement with the first part of the Future State Warworld, Worlds of War. Yeah.
Yeah,
was
right.
that woman that was looking for Clark Kent, the writer, the not Superman.
Right.
So it's nice that you're getting to revisit that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that the whole issue too was like a big op-ed that Clark wrote about a homeless guy who had died, and we the first issue of that series, the two issues. The first one was about what Superman means to us, and the second one was about what we mean to him. And we see him fighting, like risking his life for others on Warworld, while he talks about this person who died without a pot to piss in.
Yeah.
Somebody that we would all walk past and kind of see as a failure, maybe ignore them, kind of feeling awkward as they ask for money or something. But he held that person in the highest regard, and as a paragon of virtue that we should all strive to be. And I think that's who Superman is. He sees the least of us and loves us and believes in us and cares, like sees all the good that we did, even if it ended in failure. He sees our wins and believes in us right to the end. And that, I feel like that was the kind of puff piece that Lois would kind of deride him for, that, or would have once at least back in the day. That now really defines who Superman is as a person. Like there's a part where Sadie, that girl you mentioned, says like we shouldn't have needed him to tell us he was Superman. He was telling us the whole time with these articles that he was writing. So yeah, I want more moments like that, and we're going to see him.
Yeah, cool. I did like that series issue. With because obviously you're a writer, so when you're writing, it's your voice. You're kind of telling this story. When you try and write somebody else writing, is that difficult to kind of get into their head to figure out what to put down?
It is, yeah. I am having to kind of, when I write, it's not so hard to write Clark as to write his work as journalist Clark, because I feel like I have a pretty good sense of what, how he feels about people and how he writes and how he sees the world. Lois is a little different, and she writes in a very different way, and more aggressive is the wrong word, but more to the point, and also a little more in your face.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm going to spoil it here. So in 1051, we see a moment that she wrote, and it's hard. I had to constantly kind of smack myself into Lois mode and not make it feel like Clark, because I'm trying to make it. I want the book to be inspirational and to be uplifting, and to hear the Williams trumpets and everything.
Yeah.
And to do that, and Lois's voice is harder than doing it with Clark's voice, because Clark's voice just fits that feeling.
Yeah.
But to do a Lois article, but still maintain the inspirational tone of the book is a tricky line. So, but it's crucial though. I mean, one of my pet peeves is when different speakers in a book of any kind feel like the same. You kind of see the writer's hand in it all. I hate that.
Yeah.
That takes me right out of it. So I try to, when I was crafting Clark's voice as a writer, I read a lot of Pulitzer Prize winning journalistic writing about crucial social issues, or environmental issues, or things that Clark would care about.
Felt like he would write.
Yeah, stuff that he would write. Yeah, and that helped me get the tone for Worlds of War, and I continue to read that kind of stuff as I continue to write Clark's stuff. The tricky thing about other kinds of journalism is that there's not supposed to be a whole lot of the writer's not supposed to put themselves in it. It's supposed to be very here are the facts. So when that's the case, that's the kind of writer that Lois is. And how do you make a compelling emotional story without, when you're writing an article with no emotion in it? So it's tricky.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm sure there's a lot that you can't tell us at this point. Obviously, the issues coming very soon. But what can we expect from this, and how is it going to affect Superman and those around him? The secret identity sort of reinstatement.
The secret identity aspect. I mean, it's the biggest of deals in Action 1050. So Action 1050 is this big reset landmark issue. It is, it's just kind of like this, as far as the events of the book and being impactful, it's like this H-bomb that you've just got to read because it changes everything going forward. But it is not the beginning of the arcs that are following. Like the beginning of the actual arcs that come will start with Action 1051 and Superman #1, Adventures of Superman #1. These all start right after. Like 1050 kind of flips the table and everything changes. And then from that point on, the new arcs start in the following issue. So 1051 is the best jumping on point for the new arc of Action Comics. So going forward after that, the secret identity is not the A plot. Like you're going to see Clark in his old self, but it's not at front and center of the story that we're telling. The story is really about the kryptonification of Metropolis. It's about the transformation of Metropolis into the true city of tomorrow in a way that we've never really seen.
Okay.
We're seeing the superfamily become the round table of Metropolis. We're seeing the Irons family become the first family of Metropolis in a way, where they're changing the world with the creation of Steelworks and the Global Energy Research Institute, GERI, for Jerry Siegel is the abbreviation.
Oh, nice.
But the actual building that you're going to see is called Steelworks, and it's a crucial part of the institute. And
there was a series announced. It's called Steelworks, which I'm guessing is a spin-off of that.
Yeah, develop some of the stuff that we're doing in the lead story. So yeah, we're going to see the new establishment of the status quo, like all the new costumes, like all that stuff happens in 1051. Metallo is of course a crucial part, and that kicks off a series of arcs that I'm super stoked about. Let's see what else you need to know. Basically, with Action Comics, Superman and Adventures of Superman, we want to give readers the perfect jumping on points for all these series. Like if somebody's coming into Superman, somebody's like, I like Superman, I like Henry Cavill or whatever. Like I kind of want to read a Superman book. What's the touchstone Superman book? I mean, arguably up to now, the ones that you've seen are like All-Star, Superman for All Seasons, Secret Identity. There's different ones that a reader might get from a shop owner. But we want to give readers a whole lot of jumping on points all at once. Like here's the new Superman story. Boom. It's a perfect jumping on point. All three series are going to be like that. So that's in a nutshell what you're going to be getting from this new series is just hopefully an instantly classic, iconic Superman story that anyone can get into and not need to know anything that came before.
Yeah, sometimes it can be quite daunting when you're trying to work your way back to the comics. If you pick up a comic and someone's talking about it and you're like, oh, which issue is that? And then you have to read all the back issues. And yeah, sometimes it's quite hard to follow all the time.
I know. I mean, Warworld Saga is a story I'm extremely proud of. And I would be honored if, retailers were to, hand somebody that book, like, here's a great Superman story. But it doesn't feel like a traditional Superman story in a way. If somebody's like, okay, where is he? What's Warworld? Why is he naked? What's happening? Yeah. There are things that are different than we're used to seeing. So now we're telling a story that's like not classic because it's new and exciting and different, but definitely iconic in the way that you expect.
Though, in terms of
you see Clark Kent doing the thing. Yeah. You see Metropolis. You see the supporting cast. There's all the elements that you expect to see in a Superman story. So
that's a good point.
I cannot wait for you to see it. I'm so stoked for what's coming. The new artist is Rafa Sandoval. He's crushing it.
I know.
He's amazing.
Oh my God, I can't wait for you to see this book. It's going to be so dope.
But when it's interesting actually, because when you said about Warworld Apocalypse and the Warworld Saga story arc, that I do recommend that story, but as you say, it is totally different to any other Superman comic. Like you said, they're not Metropolis. You don't really have Lois Lane, so it's a bit of a unique one, but it's definitely one that I still recommend, and you should be proud of it because it's amazing.
Thank you. I am proud of it. I mean, it's I do hear it get recommended a lot, which is awesome. But like when I first announced what was coming, people would say stuff like, "Man, she's playing a Hulk with Superman," or whatever. It's like, which is fine. Like if you're just reading on the back of the VHS case, I can see why it would look like that without knowing what all the details of the story that are coming. But it is to Superman mythos what Planet Hulk is to Hulk mythos. Like Planet Hulk does not feel like a traditional Hulk story the way that the Mr. Green, Mr. Blue stuff did. But I do think that it represents well what Superman is. It just doesn't look like the idea of Superman in people's heads. So I'm very excited to do another chapter that's more, Metropolis centric.
Yeah, even for those that haven't read the Warworld saga, it's worth doing just to see the costume design, because I love that suit. How did you feel when McFarlane Toys announced the action figure for it? Have you got that yet?
Oh, dude, I did like the full Chuck Liddell thing. I was so stoked because I wanted that so bad. I mean, everyone, sorry, my eye just caught the "What Can't Stupidity Be Banned" thing. I'm distracted.
That loud.
Let's see. What were we talking about?
The action figure.
Oh yeah. So people had responded very well to the costume, and it really kind of summed up what we wanted to do. And even I really wanted these Frank Frazetta type Superman and John Carter, or Superman and Conan kind of pulp covers.
Yep.
And it's funny, we had, hopefully my editors don't get pissed at me for revealing some inside baseball, but we kind of had some back and forth on the covers, because especially later in the series, a lot of the covers rather did not, in my opinion, did not represent well what Warworld Saga was. Like, it didn't look like Warworld Saga. You would just see an amazing Lee Bermejo cover of Superman, repelling bullets or whatever in his costume. And I'm like, this looks so great, but it's not the story we're telling right now. I kind of had this image in my mind of Frazetta Superman. I just want to see pulp Frazetta Superman. And but the series did go in there. In my editor's defense, Warworld Saga did go on a long time, and I think people were afraid of people kind of getting fatigued, and they want to see classic Superman. They're trying to just reinstate Superman's visual identity. But I really wanted to go all in, and I wanted to see, this is Frazetta Superman. Let's be honest about what the story is. Just be patient. We're not trying to sell one single issue of a comic. We're trying to sell fucking Watchmen. We're trying to make this thing that is going to last forever. So we kind of went back and forth. But people really responded to the visual shorthand of the costume. They got it. Like, you could just look at that costume and tell the story we're telling. It's Spartacus in space, basically. And that really sold it. And when they did the action figure, that's the final piece. Like, I really wanted there to be, I want to see Warworld Superman Legos and those knockoff Lego booths that you see at cons and stuff.
Next Injustice comes out, it's a DLC skin.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Oh my God, you're speaking my language. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I want to see a DLC.
Skins. You literally have everything.
Yeah. That's all I want. So yeah, seeing that the action figure came out perfect. So I gave one to my son, and he's so into it. He's so into it, in fact, that we got him some other, got him a couple of Dark Knights metal ones, and they're like different takes. So we have the Trinity all in the most speed metal versions of their costumes that we can find. Let's see, Wonder Woman from Death Metal. The Batman, I think that we got him was actually Jace Fox, I believe. There's one where he has a big, his mask, his face is totally covered. He's got a big guitar axe thing. So he wanted more Warworld type costumes so they could all kind of play together, So I got him.
Does he read your work? Does he read
Some
it?
of it, yeah. The One Who Fell arc that I did
Oh yeah.
right out of the gate. When they had me on Action and Superman both, with the understanding that Superman was just going to be, the end of the run, kind of teeing up Tom for his John Kent book. That story was all supposed to be about Superman and John, and that just made it too easy. I mean, the whole thing is literally a letter from Clark to John after he's left Earth. And the whole thing is meant to be kind of a pep talk, because before he left, John was like, I don't know if I want to be Superman. I don't know if I'm up to this. You're the greatest. My life might be different. I don't know that I want to do this. Plus, if you leave, you're not going to come back. Like, won't you listen to me? Don't leave. And The One Who Fell, well, there's the first 2 issues called The Golden Age, which is actually is a pep talk from from Pa Kent to Superman. But then The One Who Fell issues are a letter from Superman to young John, just kind of reminding him of this adventure that they went on where he saved the day. And just kind of next time you feel like you're not up to it, or somebody says you're not up to it, you remember that you're the Superman. Someday you're going to be the Superman that I aspire to be. That was the whole, point of that arc. So I read that to Anders before bed. I read to my son before bed every night, no matter fucking what. So sometimes I'll read, if there's a book that I wrote that's about him in some way, which is often, I don't read in the alien ones, but because those are about him too. That's like
scary.
That's like my alien books, and like my first alien arc was also about fatherhood, but it's like a cautionary tale. It's like fatherhood gone wrong. Like my worst nightmare is what could happen with us.
Yeah.
So he doesn't get that one, but the other stuff that my DC work that's about him, I read that to him before bed sometimes.
How does he feel knowing that his dad's writing like the most iconic character?
He thinks
is he
awesome.
just not fussed, or is he excited about it?
He's really proud. It's amazing to see. I write him into my work a lot, and part of that is because I'm just, if anything ever happens, I want him to always have stories that illustrate how much he means to me, and that kind of journal our relationship, sort of. Yeah, and I want him to always have those. So he thinks it's super dope, and he talks about it with his classmates. They his school is great, and they do these things. They'll have these big like pajama day or superhero day or sports day or media day or whatever, and people, like the kids, wear, everybody dresses up that day. And there was a media day where they dress up as a character from a book or a show or a game or something that they like. And he dressed up as Superman, and he has a chance to talk about the book. And he brought a book because they all had a chance to talk about why they dressed the way they did. And he brought The One Who Fell and showed him. He's like, my dad wrote this, and I'm in it, and I'm Superman today, and blah blah blah. So he's unapologetically a huge fan, and what he was even before I got that gig. Like that picture that is on some of my social media of us both standing there. Yeah, that was well before I got the job. That was just a couple of Superman fans. So he's way into it, and he's the best fan, and I try to instill in him Superman's values in the way that other people try to instill their religion in their own kids. Yeah. Like next weekend we're going out to every Christmas we take a day to go shopping, and we buy a bunch of stuff for a kid his age, but it's not for him. And he picks out a ton of toys for somebody else, and he'll wear his Superman shirt, and we'll go out and buy a ton of stuff. And then we go, there's this organization in Baltimore called Angels of Addiction that gives Christmas basically to kids of addicts who would not otherwise get Christmas. Like Patty, the woman who runs the organization, just has the inside track. She knows like a ton of people with abuse issues in town, and she knows who needs what. And we just go shopping, and he's super cool about it. And he loves it, and he can see the impact that we're having and why that matters. So yeah, Superman's a big deal in his life, and I want to make sure that it always stays that way. I know I'm not going to be on the book forever, but I want to make sure he always remembers this time and that Superman remains a big part of his life.
Well, I'm starting a petition now. Never leave Superman.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's amazing. That's really sweet, and I love that he's involved. When Cal's older, I want him to be a Superman fan, but at the moment, all he watches is a Spider-Man sort of cartoon that's on every morning. It's just a traitor. It's not going well.
That's cool too. It's all, they all have good values.
Yeah, that's true. So obviously we've talked a bit about Action Comics and Warworld, but there's quite a lot that happened in Warworld Apocalypse in particular that is still kind of playing out in some of the later issues. So we've got Kryptonians who betrayed Superman. Apologies if I say any of the names incorrectly. I'm just giving it my best shot.
No, you're right. Kryptonians, yeah.
Kryptonians. So we know that he's got a sort of grand scheme going on. And based on the cliffhanger in the last issue, I think we're definitely going to see more of him. So what can you tell us about his character and the fight that he's bringing?
Well, I mean, everything that's coming up with Kryptonians, again, a lot of this rides on how long they let me stay on the book. But I have this story that I want to do that makes Warworld Saga look small, if you believe it. And it would have to involve some other books besides just the Superman books in some way.
Yeah.
So let's check out what we've learned from the mythology. So one of the mission statements of Warworld Saga was to tie the modern DC characters, i.e. Superman, into the Old Testament of the DC universe, which is the Kirbyverse, the fourth world. So we discovered that Warworld is not, in fact, just a big metal ball that blows stuff up. It has grown out of what was once 1/7 of a first world god named Olgrin, god of gods. He was ripped into 7 different aspects by the other gods at that time and separated because he was too powerful, too dangerous. And they spread those 7 god aspects throughout the multiverse. And one of those grew into what became Warworld. So the fire of Olgrin, like the kind of creative spark that gave him what he was one of those 7 pieces. And that became Warworld. And Kryptonians knows about that. He knows there are 6 other pieces out there. He knows that one of them is now Osel Ra, the little boy. And that was power that he intended for himself. In part to get he knew that Warworld was actually a big puzzle box that protected the necropolis, which protected the fire of Olgrin. And he wants revenge on Mongol for what he did to his world, for what he did for the Philosians.
Yeah.
That revenge has been achieved on Mongol for now. But there are still 6 other aspects out there, and there's still a United Planets who is led by the guy who kind of left the Philosians out to dry. So now he's kind of got this grudge against him and against the entire United Planets. Kryptonians kind of has a chip on his shoulder about all that, and now he finally has the power. Even though he doesn't have the fire of Olgrin, he does have something like Superman level powers because of the white sun of Warworld, and he knows that his power is fed by yellow sun, and he's got a good sense of how that all works now.
Yeah.
And he's out there, and now all of the separatists from Warworld, the Warzoons who did not recognize Superman's rule, are out there somewhere, and now he is their Mongol. So he's looking for more aspects of Olgrin with an end game in mind. So we'll see what happens.
I'm excited for that. I liked the whole relationship that they got in the Warworld Saga, and then just betrayed right at the last minute.
I like that. I really like the idea of a proper ally to Superman, who Superman honestly owes, big time, who taught him how to fight, without powers at least, and and now he's out there, and he doesn't want to be Superman's enemy. I like that. I like that he's not just like cackling somewhere like the world will be mine, like bad guys sometimes are. He has real motivations, and he has
good reason for it as well.
Yeah, he's like, his life is this big tragedy. Like, he had children who are gone now, and he's got reasons for what happened and for what's going to happen next. So I have a lot of I like seeing somebody oppose Superman who doesn't want to, who he wants what he wants, but he doesn't really want to hurt anyone. He doesn't want to hurt his friends though. So he's kind of complicated. He's angry, he's sad, he's haunted, but he's not evil.
No.
And he does evil things sometimes.
Yeah, and he's obviously he's taught Superman how to fight without powers. So now that he has these powers, which obviously he has an understanding, he's going to be quite a match for Superman.
Yeah, he's tough stuff. I really am proud of that character, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
Awesome.
Yeah, it could easily go in a Zod way, and he kind of took it in its own kind of it made him a sympathetic adversary, and so that was really cool.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
So speaking of, sorry, Sam, go on.
Yeah, that's like another great part of like modern comics. Like it's not like so black and white anymore. So it's always neat to see that. Yeah,
agreed. I like that it's not quite as simple as it was. I mean, it can be. My some of the things that my son likes to read most, actually, DC is just nailing the middle grade stuff. Mm-hmm. When he was a little smaller, he had a lot of like little kid DC stuff that he loved, and I mean, and Marvel too. I feel like right now DC really has a handle on those kinds of books. There's all these middle grade things like I forget the name of them, but like there's stuff about the Trinity, like focuses on the Trinity characters, but they were like little kids in after school detention or summer camp or whatever, and you kind of see these things play out, and it's really fun for him. It's not just straight prose. There's like little checklists or notes they write to each other, or comic-y sections and then prose sections, and it's really great. It's really helping him find that love of reading.
That's awesome.
They are quite good as well, because I've read a few of them, and I think even though they are set for a younger audience, you can still enjoy them as an older reader as well. Linking to what Tevye Smoker has said, how will these new kids affect Superman's world? So he's talking about Ulsar Ra and Othar Ra. Obviously, Superman's now taken them in, or Clark's taken them in as his own. How integral are they to the Superman family now, and will they be sticking around?
They're super integral, and yeah, as far as I'm concerned, they'll be sticking around. Cool. I don't know. It's hard to say that any one or two characters in Superman's family are more or less important than the others, because I really want this coming arc to establish who all the characters are in the family, and not just be, the one with the jacket, the cool one, the one with the short hair, the one from China, the blonde. I want it to be like, this is the one who's trying to find out who he is regarding his origins. These are these kids from Fallujah who are basically child soldiers who are now trying to be, we're trying to bring them into Superman's life and, society. We've got Kara, who grew up on Krypton and lost it all. How is that different than the ones who just kind of aspired to Krypton? She was actually a Kryptonian. How is she different? Keenan comes from a completely different scene. He's kind of arrogant. He wasn't born with these powers. Didn't speak English yet. How is
I love that you've included him.
What's that?
I love that you have included him.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it was a debate. I was like, I feel like his place is China. Like what's his place in Metropolis? But in the end, I was like, no, actually, he does have a real place here. Let's figure out how to make it work. Because Superman is trying to make Metropolis this beacon to the rest of humanity. Like, here's what we can do if we work together with science on our side, with the united vision. We can make this place a paradise. We're going to show people how to do it. So to that end, it made sense for Keenan to be part of it. And it's fun to see him interact with Connor, the other kind of cool, cocky guy.
Yeah, they're very similar in that sense.
Here's a spoiler. So Connor is going to be trying to help Keenan pick up on his English, and he's going to be doing it using video games and action movies.
Yes.
That's
But
awesome.
Keenan's going to be extra cocky with the one-liners.
Yeah, it's fun.
With the
It's really fun to see him try to learn how to speak English, using these like action movie touchstones that we all kind of grew up with. It's really fun. So yeah, it's fun seeing all the characters bounce off each other. Figure out who they would connect to. Who do you think Krypto would kind of sidle up to? Who do we think? How are the two super twins who are not actually twins? That kind of becomes their media shorthand. Like people to call them the super twins, even though also Ra is a year younger. Yeah, I just want to see how they all interact with each other. And I like seeing Superman and Lois as the parents to a young kid, to young children. But now their son, John, who was supposed to be that age, is now older. And he's kind of seeing these kids kind of like, sleeping in his old room. And it kind of makes their relationship a little more complicated. And I'm interested to see how that's going to work out too.
That's a good point. That's something I didn't actually think of, but I thought, I think it was the last issue of Action Comics where Lois takes them to the zoo. Just the way that they're sort of dissecting all of that. He's like, what is this? And she's like, just put animals in cages and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
It was kind of nice to see her doing that with younger kids. But then, yeah, like you said, that's going to cause a little bit of a rift with John because he didn't necessarily get that.
Yeah, not as much of it, yeah. It's honestly, even though I know people, there's a question about John in there. I'm like, let's just do it.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of people have asked about de-aging John Kent. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that then?
Well, I mean, I've already been over it a bajillion times, but we can't undo everything that's been done because of all the emotional arc stuff that character's been through. To just make it all not happen, including one aspect, of course, is that he came out as bisexual. If we were taken back to 10 years old again, we're erasing that, which is, literal bisexual erasure, which we are simply not going to do. But even if that were not part of the equation, we're not going to undo all the other stuff they've been through. Please, nobody try in the comments. Don't change my mind. It's not even up to me. So there it is. As far as Chris Kent, that has also kind of, because of New 52 and then Rebirth and everything, the Chris Kent thing has been undone. So I have not decided yet. At some point, we're going to see the Zods, the family Zod, play a part in everything that's happening on Metropolis and with the Philosians and everything. Because Zod's going to be intensely interested to find out about the Philosians being around again.
Especially with New Krypton,
Yeah, to think that he's not going to want to be a part of that is insane. So he'll definitely be a part of that, and that means his son will be too, and his wife. So, but as far as him being Chris Kent, that has been written out. So, anyway, there it is. Again, don't hate me. I just work here.
Got my last son copy. Still a good book. I think they have Richard Donner on it. It's pretty dope.
Yeah, it was cool. Someone's asking if Connor will be on Earth. Yes, Connor's going to be a crucial part in the whole super family dynamic.
Cool. With in the whole World War saga, there's loads of characters that you wrote. So you've got all of the Authority, Supergirl, Steel. They're all in there. What was your favorite other character to write? Obviously, excluding Superman.
Oh man. It really is like a choosing your kid situation where they're all so different. Wait, are we talking about the stuff I'm doing now or on Warworld? Sorry.
Well, either, but I was thinking sort of Warworld. So my personal favorites were Midnighter and Apollo. I didn't really know them before the series, but I love them.
Cool. Well, welcome. Of the Warworld crew, I guess I could go ahead and pick my Midnighter son. So I really love writing Midnighter. It's just so goddamn fun, and he's like Batman without all the corporate involvement. Like you can write him like a proper psycho, and not worry about it. Like he kills his ass off. He talks really rudely. I kind of like that. Nickname he had for Superman. Everyone calls Superman Blue. Like at some point, sometimes you hear him being called Big Blue. And the Warworld crew has been around him enough that they call him. Most of them call him Blue all the time, except for Natasha, who typically calls him Superman because of her high regard and respect in which she sees Superman, and Apollo as well. Apollo and Natasha, in my headcanon, call him Superman, but everyone else calls him Blue. So Midnighter does that, but he also He's just the unapologetic opposite to Superman's whole no-kill thing. He's like, yeah, whatever. Like when Superman's not looking, he'll do whatever. Especially after Superman gets his ass kicked and he's in the dungeon. At that point, Midnighter's like, well, we lost. I'm gonna get my man and get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And so he's out there looking for Apollo, killing his ass off in the alleys of Warworld because he was going to stop him. Like, well, they're all caught and I'm not, so I'm going to use mine right now. And hearing him, I'm even kind of getting sorry about all my profanity. I'm kind of getting in Midnighter mode. I like how he kind of pushes people. He kind of trash talks the way that UFC fighters leading up to a match.
Yeah.
He's just so fun, man. I just love it. And I mean, I myself do have these barbarian tendencies, and it's just a really fun way to kind of get it out on the page in the Superman book where I wouldn't otherwise.
That's a good point. Leading to my next question, we've kind of talked about the characters that you've written and are around and whether they're sticking around. How about Thal-La? So I love her character. She's a breath of fresh air. She's already she's got those Superman tendencies in the way that she is and the way that she thinks.
She does. I love that character. And you kind of look like her straight up. Like the way that she was portrayed in the book. Yeah, you should do a Thal-La cosplay at Con sometime. Yeah. I know cons in the UK are a little different than over here, but
no, they still do cosplay.
Oh, they do? Okay, cool.
I'll give it a go.
I love Thal-La, but I right now her place is on Warworld, leading the rest of the Philosians, and I will say that she's gonna have some tricky things coming up. So right now we're gonna try to take a break from Warworld for the moment, kind of focus on Metropolis and the Super Family. So we're not going to see Thal-La in the lead story. I do think there's a possibility we could see her in a backup. There's a possibility we could see a spin-off thing happen. But whenever we get back to the stuff with Krill Hooks and the the whole fallout with Algren and all that, Thal-La is going to have a crucial part in all that. So I mean, we saw in Future State House of L that Thal-La plays a very important part in the future of Superman's line. And I don't want to spell out the whole family tree of what happens later, but in my headcanon, Thal-La is in the House of L family tree. And the Warworld Philosians are a very important aspect of that line. So right now there are these people who are kind of like the, of course I'm drawing a blank on the word, Mon-El. What's his race?
Daxamite.
Yes, thank you. It's kind of like there's kind of that whole thing, but their Warworld is like their colony, and we're going to see that in a big way. And she's their leader, and in future generations she will be heralded as like this. Like a spiritual leader. Like I think Thal-La's the shit, and she's got a lot to come.
Cool. I'm glad to hear that because I love the character. Obviously, she's been out of for a lot of it, she was kind of out of action, obviously healing and everything. But even the little mini stories in Action Comics at the moment, where it's her and Supergirl, I really like their dynamic together as well. It's nice to see them.
Oh god, I know. I love seeing them together, and I wanted. At one point, I was pitching a book called Supergirls, plural.
Oh, with the two of them.
To get them,
two of them and another character, and it would have been really fun. But the way that things lined up, I mean, that's one of the challenges, but also the fun aspects of writing DC and Marvel is that it's this big shared universe, and there's other people playing in the sandbox at the same time as you, and you can't hog all the toys.
Yeah.
So there were reasons why that story wasn't going to work, sadly, but it was really important to me to see Thal-La and Supergirl bond a little bit. So hopefully someday we'll still get to do that. And but regardless, I wanted to see them bond a little bit to seed future stories with all those characters.
The third character, you said it was Supergirl, Thal-La, and somebody else. Does it begin with a P by any chance?
None of your business. If I could tell you, I would. I can't right now. That's all.
I thought I'd try my luck. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Sorry, I can't tell you.
No.
I got a question I have to respond to. So Jason asks, "Will Manchester Black be around? Maybe he's a villain again?"
Yes.
I wish I could tell you. I wish I could at least tease you about it because I know something you don't know. But please read Action 1050. Like Action 1050 is going to answer that question. So please read it.
Well, and he's in 1049. So if
Sure
if
is.
you haven't read 1049 yet, Manchester does show back up there.
Yeah, he's in 1049, 1050 in a very important role. So
Okay.
you can read it and then think back to this conversation. Yeah. Anyway, read that book. Okay. It's cool.
Yeah. So hold on. Yeah.
Someone's asking about Otho Ra. No, I don't see Otho Ra as Supergirl just yet. She is very much her own thing. And another one of the things that makes their relationship a little more complicated is that Otho Ra now is a new god now in a way. He's like a reincarnation of Ulgrin, or at least part of him. So Orion was not entirely wrong when he said, "This kid's one of us now. You got to give him to us." Superman's like, "Fuck off." But it doesn't mean Orion is necessarily wrong. That kid is now a new god. And his older sister, Otho Ra, is not. And it doesn't mean she's not powerful because she also is a Philosian, and you'll see her kind of grow in power as well as she kind of soaks in the rays. But she's not the subject of this crazy prophecy the way her younger brother is, which also kind of makes it more complicated. So what if he had gone with Orion? Does his sister go too? Or does she stay behind? Like it's all just kind of messy in a way that I really like to show in books.
Well, and the way they've had to stick with each other, that would be a messy thing.
Oh my God. Yeah. So, I mean, I know that readers, and John is not the first character to go through something unpleasant in a comic where everyone gets pissed off about it. But sometimes when these messy things happen, it does make for a really dramatic story. I mean, the whole reason, let's be honest, the whole reason that Superman and Lois, the TV show, the whole reason they have two kids is to make it messy and sometimes, tense. Like that whole stuff at the very beginning where, one of them gets powers and the other one doesn't. Yeah. Superman takes that one kid to the fortress and not the other. Like that's super lame. And like you're gonna see these tensions arise, and it makes for good dramatic TV. Lots of teenage angst. So if everyone just got along and everything was all happy, like what if we could have seen John grow up, through his whole life? That would have been so amazing. Yeah, I know. And then something terrible happened and messed it all up. Have we ever seen that in the story before? That stuff happens all the time. That's what stories are. Yeah. So that's the whole thing with Otho Ra and Oso Ra is also quite messy, and it's going to get messier. And to have them interacting with John in those ways is really interesting to me. So I'm looking forward to putting all that on the page.
Yeah. I really wasn't expecting to see the gods show up. That was just an added bonus. I wasn't expecting that at all. I didn't know where that was going at all. So one question on the new gods. Speaking of the new gods, that reminds me, are you going to bring in the Grail, the daughter of Darkseid, in Action Comics?
That would be kind of cool. I have not thought about it yet, honestly, until just now. So thank you.
Yes.
But no royalties for you, though. No, I don't know. It's not a terrible idea. The whole thing with Grail is a little more complicated because of her shared heritage as well. But I would like to. We'll see.
Yeah. So on to the Dawn of DC, which I think starts starting around January. There's a lot of Superman news that's been announced, and we've talked about some of it already. But you're also going to be tackling a new character, so Green Lantern. John Stewart. So I know a lot of people are excited for this, and I think people, I think Wayne in particular has already put in the comments for the questions. I'm excited for this, and I'm looking forward to seeing your take on a different character. So far we know the title is Green Lantern John Stewart, and we know that you're writing it, and we know that it comes out in 2023. it's very early days, and obviously there's probably not very much that you can say at all with regards to the character. But is Jon Stewart a character that you've always wanted to write, or how did this series come about?
Actually, no. I grew up with Hal Jordan, and I did have some really old books that Jon appears in, and they were cool. But I never really saw him as like my Green Lantern, because Hal was in everything. I had all the old Green Lantern and Green Arrow stuff. Not all, but I had some of those, and I really liked them. That's kind of still like in my knee-jerk kind of lizard brain instinctive way. I still see Hal Jordan and Ollie as buddies from the old Neil Adams books, Denny O'Neil. So when I got tapped to do the Dark Crisis Jon Stewart book, my first instinct was, I don't know if I'm the right person for this gig, actually, because I know Hal so much better. But honestly, one of the benefits of doing these licensed books, I mean, I would not have pitched the Jon Stewart book. Like, I'm the guy, I got to do this book. But I almost never pitch anything anymore anyway, because I'm just drowning all the time. I just wait until stuff like slap me in the face, like, do this book. I'm like, oh, okay. And Jon Stewart was very much that thing, like slap in the face, like, do this book. I'm like, I don't know how. But then it's an opportunity for me to fill a hole in my game and figure out a way in to love this character. My first ever book at DC was like that. It was an Aquaman thing. And I didn't know anything about Aquaman, really, except for like Super Friends. And but it gave me a chance to.
Same character.
Yeah, exactly. So it gave me an opportunity to do this deep dive on Aquaman and learn to love a character that I did not know before. And it was a great challenge, but also a great opportunity. And and now I kind of found myself there again with Jon Stewart. So whenever I'd seen him, aside from my old stuff, in which I still remember Jon as an architect, now it's whenever I see him like in the cartoons or in any kind of media, really, they kind of depict him as the ex-Marine. It kind of has that military lingo, and it's just kind of one-dimensional. And I wasn't very interested in Jon the way he's very often depicted. Which I get. If you're writing a team book with like 8 characters in it, and you only have so many pages or so many minutes of a show, you need to have some kind of shorthand for who everybody is. Like, here's the funny one, here's the cocky one, here's the military guy, Batman broods, Superman smiles. I totally get it, but it's not enough for me for Jon. So I called Jeffrey Thorne actually, and it was like, you love this character, and I want to know him better. Give me your thoughts on Jon Stewart. Who do you think he is at his core? Whenever I'm coming up on a character that I don't know very well, usually I'll call somebody who I deeply respect, who I think really understands that character, and I'll just ask, who is this person at the core? Like, concisely, what is the seed that they grew from? What are they? And Jeffrey didn't really give me that concise answer, but what he did was spew an hour and a half of Green Lantern love at me about like how awesome Jon is and his whole story. And I already knew a lot. I'd already done my research about who he is and stuff he'd been through, but I wanted to know who he was at his core. But through that conversation, that monologue, I should say, Jeffrey just like spoke at me for a long time, and it was awesome. It was incredibly useful. He was so excited for the character, and in the end, what I took from it was he was always the obvious choice to be Green Lantern. That's what I took from it. He never actually said those words. Jeffrey didn't, but that's what I took from it. Like while Hal Jordan is kind of the dark horse pick, the guy like the cocky test pilot who kind of just wings it. He'll just kind of jump in and do whatever and figure it out as he goes. It's kind of this mess up guy who became one of the goats of all time, like ever. Jon Stewart was the obvious choice to be Green Lantern, and always was. Like, he's the consummate leader, warrior, architect, he's a creative thinker, but also just a natural leader of soldiers. Someone who was a part of something bigger than himself, who has no ambitions to be a superhero forever. He's just going to do his time of service, and then when he gets a little older, he's just going to retire and do something else with his life. he's just this fascinating character that always should have been Green Lantern. I love that. And he's got a mother that was who's a huge impact on him as a civil rights leader. He has a sister that we don't know much of, who we never really knew much about. I wanted to find out more about that too. Something that, like some kind of personal thing that drives him. So now I know who John is. So now John is honestly, he's a character I love to write, and I can't wait to get into this thing. I have a very clear vision for what this miniseries is going to be, and I've heard it depicted. I will say, comics are a serial medium that come out very quickly every month, and there's this train that never stops, and there's not enough track, and everyone's just kind of, figuring it out as we go. And I think I'm gathering that there might have been some stuff put out about what the book is going to be. Somebody said it was going to be like a military themed Green Lantern thing. That's all bullshit. Like, I'm sure, I'm sure somebody said that because they needed to say something, but that's not actually what this book's going to be about at all. I do have a very specific story in mind that I want to do, and it does kind of tie into some of my other books. There are ties to the one shot. There's also ties to my Superman work. It's going to be kind of like a Green Lantern, like high science fiction, high fantasy take on action films, on like a kind of like something like Predator or Terminator, or not in the plot points. I'm not saying there's going to be a big time travel thing. I'm just saying it kind of has that feel of, somebody suddenly thrust into a situation they're not prepared for, and what do you do, kind of a thing. And the way that a lot of those old 80s classic action movies did so well, it's going to be a Green Lantern, larger than life, bigger than the DCU kind of take, like a really, really big world take on that kind of thing. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be great. I love that John character. I want people to see more of it. I want to see of him and learn to love him the way that I do.
Yeah.
So now I will say there's a very vocal Green Lantern component of Twitter in which everyone's got their favorite, and people are going to ask me, "Where's Hal Jordan? He's the real Green Lantern." Or "Where is Guy Gardner going to be in this?" They're like, "If you're not Kyle Rayner, go to hell." Or people get very protective of their Lantern, and that's totally fine. But this is a John Stewart book. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying the other ones won't have an appearance, but I'll write another one later. Don't worry about it. This is a John book, so please read it. If you're a Green Lantern fan at all, I hope you dig it, because I hope you read it, because I'm very proud of it, and I'm going to do my very best work on it.
Cool.
Since it's probably taking place in space, so are we going to see like any connections to like the Action Comic series, or like any mention of Warworld or anything? Or
I didn't say it was going to be in space.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Okay, that's so wow. Never. All the stories are always taking place. That's going to be new. That's going to be new for me. Can't wait.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I don't spoil it. But also, they also announced this book real early. This book is coming out in like September or something.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. That's a. So
they're excited for it too.
That's a ballpark, huh?
They're excited for it too if they're already plugging a book that's almost a year out.
They are. And I think I think there are different people who have different ideas of what these books are going to be. I heard one person say somewhere, like on a podcast or something, it was like, the Hal book's going to be the fun superhero one, and the John Stewart one is going to be the badass military one or something. And I was like, I never said any of that shit. And I know for a fact that Mariko didn't either. I don't think Mariko. I think Mariko's got her own idea for her own book. I don't think that idea has been put out yet, and I have my own idea that has also not been expressed yet. So So don't put too much credit into anything that's out there about what my book's going to be, because no one, like right now, you guys have heard more about this book than literally anybody else.
Well, we're on it.
It's exclusive.
Yeah. Yeah, because when I first read about it, it mentioned the military thing. So I was going to ask. But
I think they had that in mind. Like, who we should get? John Stewart. There's a guy in the military. Let's get him to do it. That might have been what they were thinking.
Yeah.
But I have received no such guidance.
So you said it was a mini series. How many issues are we talking? Is it 6?
That I don't know yet.
Okay.
It's so far in advance. I mean, 6 is probably certainly no less than 6.
Yeah.
6 would probably be a good guess. I'd say 6 to 8, but it depends. I mean, I'm writing a James Bond right now that initially was going to be 6 and now it's 12. So we'll see.
Well, if they're that excited about releasing the news, and judging by the comments, there's a lot of enthusiasm for the Green Lantern series. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, thank you.
So you've worked on so many different characters. Are you looking forward to taking on another character in the DC universe, or which character would be at the top of your list that you haven't worked on yet?
I've written Batman in a few short bursts. I've got mostly like one-shots and stuff. One-shots or short stories. I do have a Batman detective story that I want to tell, like a detective noir kind of thing. I think that like the world's greatest detective aspect is very often lost. I love books like, Long Halloween or The Black Glove, and these things that have this really fun mystery element that kind of, just guessing at what's going to happen and all that. Yeah. So I have a story I want to tell with Batman. Now, I know Batman's most popular character in the history of the world. So I'm sorry to give the low-hanging fruit answer, but there's a specific Batman story that I want to tell. Him aside, though, there's a John Constantine Deadman story I want to tell that I think would be really fun. There's also I have a version of Spectre that I would love to tell. I like all the creepy stuff, so I want to do a version of those. I really, really want to tell my whole Algren thing. I love the New Gods. I would love to make them. I would love to tie the DC universe to the Kirby stuff more directly. It's not like Kirby doesn't get respect. I mean, everyone acknowledges how crucial Kirby is to comics, to American comics on both sides of the big two and elsewhere. But I don't know. It just feels like a very separate thing sometimes. And I want to see the New Gods be a bigger, more integral part, and not just Darkseid, but the whole pantheon,
New Genesis. Sweet.
Yeah, totally. So, gosh, what else? I do have another series coming out pretty soon. Well, I mean, I guess I haven't heard final word if the pitch is accepted, but there is another series I'm going to be doing pretty soon that's going to be real big and monthly, like an ongoing thing. When you hear that news, have no fear. I'm not giving up Superman for anything. Like, Superman will be the last book out of my hands when I die.
I can imagine you're like really old, clinging to the Superman comics.
Yeah, right. Wouldn't it be awesome though? I mean, just thinking of thinking of the work that somebody like Dan Jurgens did on Superman. It would be so incredible to have this big, impactful run like that. So even if I'm down to like
you've already done it.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to have had as big an impact as Jurgens. That guy is just a legend. But I would love to do years and years of Superman. I just care so much about that character.
Yeah.
I mean, in part because of stories like the thing I mentioned with my son, like going and like putting on the shield, putting on the sigil, and going out and actually helping people who need you. Is just, it's that's. I mean, like I said, it's my religion. That's what it really matters to me, and I want it matter to other people. This is a way that which. In this time of political strongmen and bullies and polarization of these people who in whose best interest it is to make us hate each other and angry all the time and look out for our own needs and interests and to the exclusion of other people, we have the opportunity to tell stories. Not just me, but you guys too have the opportunity to tell stories about the greatest hero, the champion of the oppressed, who puts everyone else's needs before their own. And I take that so incredibly seriously. So if I ever have to be down to just one comic that I ever write again, it'll be Superman, or Action Comics specifically. Yeah. And even if they could have given me any title to write at DC or Marvel or anywhere else, it would have been Action Comics, because that's the legacy series. I know that traditionally Superman sells more than Action, Batman sells more than Detective because the name is on there, and I get it. but Action Comics is the legacy series. It carries this weight to it.
Yeah.
So it's a huge honor on me that I still don't feel like I deserve, but I'm going to give everything I've got to make sure that it's worth it. So that'll be, that's the book I still want to do. And I can't believe I'm doing it, but I keep doing my best.
I love when Superman fans actually do stand by what he stands for, because there's so many times where I've spoken to Superman fans before and they just don't resemble or even mimic what he stands for, what he says, what he's all about, and it's nice to actually hear you talk about him in that way.
Yeah, even when people do, when you hear people who are massive Spider-Man fans or Superman, somebody who just has this just clearly, purely ethical core to who that character is, but then they say some super hateful thing about one of the creators or just some rando on the internet or whatever. Like, I don't know. I just don't think it's not like they're trying to be a dirtbag. They just don't see it. They just don't see the contrast. They don't understand. And they just need us to help them. They just need a reminder from us. You know, they need to just remember who these characters are and why they love them, and just try to emulate them, and not just read them for the pictures, but like really try to live it, you know?
Yeah.
So they need our help.
Definitely. Sam and David, do you have any more questions regarding Superman? Because I was going to move on to the favorite moments section of the podcast.
Just like little like follow-up questions from just what we've been talking about. Like you mentioned, like thinking about like the Superman theme playing when like you write like Superman, or like write his journalistic writing. Like when it's obviously different for Lois. Like, what is there any music that comes to mind for Lois when you write her writing, or not?
It's the "Can You Read My Mind" theme from those films as well.
Oh
Nice.
yeah.
No, that's a good score.
I actually did a jazz trio arrangement of that tune in college that I played. It was just me and me, bass, and played on flugelhorn, like a trumpet, but it's a little bigger, more conical. She's got a more mellow. It's like a cross between a trumpet and a French horn, kind of, in the sound that it makes. It's like a little bit bigger and deeper. I would play the theme on that with a bass and drummer, and it was just, I don't know, it just feels good, man. I don't know. I mean, I know that's not who Lois is. You know, the love theme for Superman is really not so much. It doesn't depict Lois. It depicts how they feel about each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the and like that for whatever reason that. There's that other theme. There's that little
Williams
dropping bass line below. Anyway, I digress.
You totally had the answer.
That really that elegant motion of melody and counter melody. It doesn't feel like Lois, because again, Lois is kind of like high energy and in your face, and like, we're gonna get out there and do it, and she's just so like, boom, you know, like I'm a fucking boss, kind of a feel. But when it relates to Superman, she feels the way that theme sounds.
Yeah.
And same thing with Superman with regards to her. That's the theme that kind of combines how they feel about each other, like unites them in that way. So I don't really, because I'm not writing the book from Lois's perspective, I'm writing it from Superman's perspective for the most part, or a story about Superman in which Lois plays a key role. So that theme kind of does it for me. I see her in the way that theme sounds, if that makes sense. If I was going to write a Lois book, I don't know what that theme would be. It would be very different. Because she is so high energy and just so badass. And there's actually a great moment in Josh's book where somebody in the chat asked about her as editor-in-chief. You kind of see her step out of the office, like, you know, barking at somebody. And it really kind of sums up her in that role. It's like Perry White Lois. And Lois in that moment is nothing like that theme at all. But in the moments where they're like in the sky together, especially now that I've established that like them having sex in the sky is like canon, that's the theme that I hear in those moments.
Neat. Cool.
So part of what we're going to be doing in the monthly episodes is we're going to be talking about our favorite moments in the Superman comics the past month, rather than going through every issue, because I think we would be there for hours and hours on end. But do you guys have any favorite moments that you want to bring up or talk about from last month's comic?
Last month. Go ahead, Sam.
Okay,
Sorry.
Go ahead. I already spoke. You're good.
Man, well, let's see. There's been so many, because like the Death of Superman thing, the celebration thing came out, and that was uniting all those creators from that time, and they did new stories and stuff. And that was really cool. I don't know. I don't know if there's a single one.
Give a few then.
Yeah, I guess I do. I don't know. It's kind of a segue from what you was talking about with the Lois theme from Superman. You know, that it's been a couple months now, but that end of Warworld saga, where she's writing the letter. You know, let everyone else have Superman tomorrow. I need that. I need the sunrise. I need that moment. And he just out of nowhere, like, because it's not a mind reading thing. It's not. She's not talking. She's right. It's like they were both in that same mindset, and he just takes her up, and that's, you know, I'm back. You know, like she had no clue. So that was cool.
Thanks. Yeah, sunrise.
You know, you read my mind in that moment.
Oh, good, man. Yeah, Sunrise Point is the place that's the name that they give that spot. It's like, you know, in relation to Metropolis, it's like up 5,000 feet and way over here where they can see the whole city and the mountains beyond it. And nobody can see them. That's like their spot.
So,
anyway.
We're just talking about like all the Superman releases, and then like not just one specific book. So honestly, like I've been really enjoying World's Finest. That's been really good. Superman Space Age has been hitting it out of the park for me. I mean, the freshest Superman memory thing I have now is something from the recent issue of Action Comics with him just like fighting against Orion and Calabac in front of the zoo. That takes me back to the animated series. Like seeing the New Gods again. Yeah, I love the New Gods. Like I'm in the same boat as you. I'm super happy they're back at it, and Orion's like being antagonistic, because that's just kind of who he is when he's not being a hero. That is. Yeah, but I mean,
sorry, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I'm just saying, so much good Superman content. It seems like we're gonna get more. Like I'm reading two of the books right now. Now I think we're gonna be reading 3. A lot of good stuff.
Not more.
Yeah, more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a huge honor to be on the books at this time. There's a lot of great stuff coming out. Wade is crushing it on World's Finest, and the art obviously is always incredibly on point.
Yeah.
I regard Orion as kind of a tragic character too. That whole thing with, the origin where, their fathers traded sons to keep this peace intact. It's just this unthinkable thing that I would never do. Like if you got to give your son away to save 1 million lives, could you do it? I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just. You just got to find another way. I can't imagine doing that. But being that son, and granted, like he kind of got the better end of that deal, where he's still his father's son in some ways. Like they tried to raise him to be, a citizen of New Genesis, but he's still underneath all that. He's still Darkseid's son, and he's still got that rage, and he tries to do the right thing and all that. But he's just, I don't know. It's been interesting to see how differently he's portrayed in different ways or in different eras. Like sometimes he's just the full-throated hero, and other times he's a little more complicated. And people talked about him in these recent issues of Action as if he's like the villain, and he's kind of the villain. He's certainly the antagonist in those moments where he's fighting Superman, but he's doing what he thinks is right. He's not, he's just doing what he knows. Like he's okay. This kid is ours now, so we're taking him. Because you don't know what you've done. You don't know the harm you've done, the danger you've opened this all up to, but we're going to fix it and we're going to make it right. I'm going to make it right by taking your son, your new son. And then all Superman can see is when he lost John and be like, over my dead body. Like, so I didn't see Orion as the villain, capital V villain in those moments at all. Anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
What's your favorite comic book moment from? It doesn't have to be necessarily Superman, but anything that you've read this past month, Philip.
Oh God, I can't talk about what I'm reading. I'm reading a bunch of research for the thing I'm about to write. Gosh, what else? I'm trying to think what else I read that was not that. I actually went back and read the first trade of oh my God, drawing a blank. Rick Remender, book about a bunch of kids, assassin school and assassins Harry Potter in the 80s. What's it called? Hold on a second.
The Umbrella Academy?
Deadly Class.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I read the first take of the first trade of Deadly Class again, which is incredibly good. But as far as new stuff, I'm not caught up from this past month. Except, actually, no. I read the first issue of I read Superman #1. Yeah, that's about to come out, and I know it's not out yet, but I read it, so I'm going to count that. And I think.
Oh, you meant the one from like 1939.
Yeah, Superman #1. No, Josh's new book with Jamal Campbell.
Okay.
And God, it's beautiful. It honestly, it feels so much like the animated series. It just is this really exciting, fun, colorful issue. It just completely nails it. I say they, of course, the whole team just completely crushed it. The colors match the book so well. And it's so different from Rafa's work. Rafa Sandoval is doing equally incredible work on action, but it's so different. So I'm really excited to have the different titles all kind of flying in the same direction and telling one story, but having such different takes. I feel like I love the animated series, but my book does not really emulate the animated series because of my voice. Also, I'm just darker than that, I guess. Like hidden truths and conspiracies and like puzzle boxes and murderers who don't want to be murderers and stuff like that.
Like the way they bring in like the season finale when they need a super crazy storyline with Darkseid or someone.
Right, exactly. But Josh is all animated series, and Jamal's art just completely exemplifies that. So I can't wait for you guys to read that book too. I mean, I should be pitching Action harder. I mean, I'm very very proud of Action, but those guys are doing great work on Superman #1.
And they're bringing back Livewire as well, aren't they? I've seen some of the concept art of the designs that she's got, and I think all of the characters have got new designs in this series, which I'm excited to see those.
Yeah, all the new costumes you're going to see in 1051, and a new addition to the Metropolis skyline as well. There's going to be a new addition to the skyline that's going to be there forever, until it inevitably gets blown up someday. But I'm sure it'll be back again after that.
Okay, that would be cool to see. I think my favorite moment was from the Death of Superman special when Superman's fighting Doombreaker, and John, when I'm assuming he's like 10 years old at this point or something like that, he just stands in front of Doombreaker in the middle of the fight to stop him. And he doesn't have the powers yet. He's just got the sentiments of his dad all over. That was my favorite part.
Awesome. Nice choice.
If any of you guys have any questions for Philip, just throw them in and we'll go through some of them now. First of all, who's your favorite member within the Superman family aside from Superman? Is this another picking
there's
the
that choose your kids thing again? Man, I don't know, man. I really don't have an answer. Like I feel like it would be a disservice to the characters if I did have an answer. Like I try to find my way, and I try to love all of them the same. If I feel like one of them is the standout, that kind of makes me go to the others and build them up or make them more complicated in other ways to make sure that they all feel as similarly weighty. I really don't have an answer. I love seeing the Connor and Keenan relationship. That's really fun. They're super fun to write. Seeing John interact with the twins is also fun. Seeing Kara interact with Clark, but also with Natasha and also with the twins, because she's kind of like the way I've written that whole family. Kara is now, even though she's younger than some of the other characters, technically she's kind of the old veteran too. She's the only one from Krypton, and she's kind of given this deference in that way, even by Clark. She kind of knows stuff that the others don't. So I don't know, it's impossible for me to say.
Okay. Linking to the favorite moments, what is your favorite moment in your Superman run that you love to write?
That was the most fun to write. There's actually a moment in 1051. Say it again.
So a lot of it's quite harrowing, where he's sort of battling on Warworld and stuff. But
yeah. A lot of that stuff was hard to write, but it was. Let's see. Writing. There's a moment in 1051 that deals with the Warworld armor, like the Warworld costume. That was really fun to write, and I'm kind of surprised they let me get away with it. But in the same keeping as the Sex in the Sky stuff, where I was kind of pushing the line a little bit. There's a moment like that in 1051 that was really, really fun to write. That aside, the reunion between, when Midnighter tried to bust out Superman after his loss in 1038, I believe, and Superman refused to go. That was really fun too. And everyone, I saw a lot of screen grabs on the internet after that, when Midnighter's like, do our lives really matter to you less? Let's see. Do their lives matter more to you than ours? Like, we're the ones who came here with you, put our lives on the line for you, and you're leaving us here for these people who cheered for you to get killed. Like, do their lives really matter more to you than ours? And he said, no, not more, but not less. That was the moment everyone really grabbed onto from that book. I thought it was going to be another line that I wrote right before that, where, Midnighter's like, come on, we're going. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. He's like, do you think we won this thing? Like, a stadium full of people just, we got our asses kicked. These people are dead, and these people cheered for that. And Superman said, what should we do then? Abandon the ones who don't cheer for us? Stay down when we get knocked down? Is that what our heroes taught us? That was the moment that I thought people would grab onto, but ended up being the other one. So I think that moment where he's like, should we abandon the people who don't cheer for us? That was the moment that spoke to me. And that's the line that I feel like is most relevant to our society now, where, I'm totally breaking the law here by saying this, because I'm not supposed to express any kind of political support or opposition to anything as an active duty soldier. But, going through a certain number of years with a president who unapologetically was a president to one group and not the other group, I thought it was really important to show, like, we try to help everyone. We're here to help everyone, not just our allies. Yeah. We are here to, serve humanity, to show what the best of humanity is to everyone. So that was his moment where he's like, what are we supposed to do? Abandon the ones who don't cheer for us? So that was the moment that mattered to me a lot in that book, and honestly in the whole run. So that's my choice.
Neat. Totally respect it. Sweet.
There was quite a few questions, but I feel like a lot of them are going to lead to spoilers, and you probably won't be able to answer very much about them. But one question which I'm intrigued to know also is, how do you approach the research for writing all of these different super family characters? Do you go back and read all of the source material? Because obviously there's so many characters and there's so many series and books and cartoons, anything that you can watch. How do you approach that?
This is an unusual answer, and I hope I don't accidentally screw anyone by leading them astray here. But I do read. I don't rely much on the animated stuff unless there's something really iconic from the shows. For example, I think in Batman the Animated Series, the Heart of Ice episode with Mr. Freeze and Nora was this transformative thing that really kind of mattered, that made the comics better after that. Things like that, I'll turn to those. Or if I'm doing a story specifically about the Black Mercy or something that's been, obviously the thing to read there is For the Man Who Has Everything, the old Superman story. But that's also been depicted in the cartoon, and then Supergirl live action after that. So I did kind of look for everything that's been done since then to make sure I'm not treading into the same stuff. But actually, when I'm writing Superman, the character, like Clark's character, I'm not just I will read my Touchstone series, like All Star, like Man Who Has Everything, Secret Identity, and all those. But I'm also reading and listening to the speeches of FDR and Martin Luther King, and journalistic writing that matters to me, like the stuff that has won Pulitzers and all that I think Clark would write. What else? I'm kind of drawing a blank here, but I look for things outside of the comics that I think would inform this person's voice. The Atticus Finch character from To Kill a Mockingbird, things that I think are a big, who I think really captures Superman's voice. Aspects of Ted Lasso, but not in anybody's voice, but more like the way it makes you feel, like the whole, like, are you a lion or a panda kind of a thing, like stuff that makes you feel a certain kind of way, not so much any of the actual language.
I've heard a lot of
sorry, what?
I've heard a lot of comparisons. I haven't seen Ted Lasso, but I've heard a lot of comparisons to his character in that to Clark.
Yeah, it's not the same, but it's. Yeah, I disagree with some of those characterizations, but there is something about the feeling it captures, the way that it kind of, there are all these moments where he has every reason to be like, you know what, screw you. And instead, he just completely turns the other cheek and is just he just makes the world better everywhere he goes. He's like this, he gives off this aura that just kind of heals people.
Yeah. And
that is what is of value in that show, in writing Superman, not anything that anyone actually says so much. So yeah, it's not, I actually look outside of the comics. I look to other media and find characters like Clark, or moments that I'm trying to emulate in moments from the book. And even when I'm writing the other characters too, I'm not writing, like if I'm writing a moment between Connor and Keenan, I will read comics with those characters in them, but I'll also watch shows that have other relationships in them that I think could be emulated in some way in this. So yeah, that's my answer.
That makes sense. Well, I think we're going to leave it there. We've taken up far too much of your time, and yeah, again, thank you so much for joining us again. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and this one in particular has been very insightful to talk Superman with you. Thank you for your work on the character. I know I speak for a lot of people here, including Marcus Embry, who has just become a lifelong Phillip Kennedy Johnson fan, among many others.
That's cool. That's a cool icon too. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Like somebody, I don't know what Marcus looks like, but I got the impression that was drawn with the idea of like, I embody Superman's values. Like I just love whenever I see people like, with icons that they use as their own social handles. I think it's really cool.
Well, yeah. Thank you for listening, everybody, and thank you for joining in. I think this has probably been one of our most interactive versions of the podcast that we've ever had. Yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for being with us. I'm glad we're back, and we'll be back next month with another episode. To the Patreons who continue to support us even while we're on hiatus, thank you so much. We're glad to be able to create content for you guys again, and we will catch you for the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. Bye, guys.
Thank you guys too for the work that you're doing, and for the viewers who ask questions, for spreading the gospel.
Spreading the gospel, I like that.
Superman's real. Let's keep making him real.
We'll continue to do so. Thank you, guys.